everyone, my name is Shauna in case you don't know, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a January reading wrap-up. This is my first time doing a wrap-up video of what I've read in a month because, to be honest, I've been in a huge reading slump for a really long time, and only this month have I been able to start reading again a lot. As you can see by the thumbnail, it doesn't look like that many books, but I've been reading a lot of ebooks recently, which is like really rare for me. I used to never be able to finish ebooks. I think before this month I've only finished The Hunger Games as an ebook, maybe Catching Fire, so there's only like 1 or 2 books that I actually finished as an ebook previously, but this month I've been able to read more ebooks and just it's been great because I've been reading a lot. But the one thing is, part of the reason why I haven't been recording videos as much is because, frankly, my school work this term is like really intense and there's a lot of schoolwork. Oh, and before I start listing off what books I read, I'm using this reading log to start tracking everything I read. I also use Goodreads, but something about just having like a physical way to write everything down is fun. So the first book I read this month was The Fever Code by James Dashner. I started this book I think in July or August, but again I was in a huge reading slump, so I was just like slowly going through it, but I finally finished reading it. I do have a first edition, but unfortunately I accidentally spilled Sprite all over the book, so I don't even think this book, first edition, might not like mean anything eventually, but like, yeah, it's just not gonna mean anything anymore for this one because I spilled Sprite on it. But The Fever Code was really interesting. I'd say don't read The Fever Code unless you've read the Maze Runner series. I would give it 5 out of 5 stars just because I'm so attached to the characters and it's nice to have all the characters again and you sort of like know which ones won't die in this book. So that's sort of nice. Just a premise for this book, it's all of the main characters from the series, but before the series happens, so they're all like younger and stuff. I'd say this book doesn't answer any questions that I had left over from the series, but it still was fun to read. Also, I'm still not a huge fan of James Dashner's style of writing. I feel so bad. I just feel like it's like slightly dull. I mean, he's really good at like world building, building characters, but his actual style of writing, I don't enjoy it that much. The next book I read was an iBook called Silence. It was by Natasha Preston. I got this book for free on iBooks. I'm not sure if it's still free. I feel like it might still be free. I don't know. I got it a really long time ago. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I felt like it talked about 2 really important topics. So first of all, it talked about past trauma. I don't want to say what that past trauma is, but from the start of the story, they really start hinting at what it is, so you can sort of guess a little bit about what happened. It's really important to be talking about past trauma. Just the main character was so like strong and she was able to find like love even with her past trauma and like having a like negative view of herself. I don't know, just for me personally that like really struck like close to home with me and I enjoyed that. It also talks about selective mutism, which I think is really important to talk about because a lot of people don't know what selective mutism is. Selective mutism is because of trauma or various factors, you don't talk. And yeah, it's just something that needs to be talked about more because it does exist and it exists in a lot of different places. So I think it's really important to like learn more about selective mutism and have more books about selective mutism. So I was really glad that she had that in her books. I don't know if I want to read the sequels to Silence because I felt like Silence works really well as like a standalone novel. The next book I read is one of my favorite books this month, and that's Cloaked in Shadow by Ben Alderson. So Ben Alderson started out on YouTube as a booktuber. I have been following and supporting him for years on his YouTube channel, and then he wrote a book and I was like, I have to get my hands on that book. And then I kept procrastinating getting it. I'm in a reading slump, I'm not gonna read it for a while. And then I finally just gave in and used an Amazon gift card to buy it. And it was amazing. Yes, there's a lot of typos, but like, give him a break. It's his first book and it's with his own publishing company. I didn't mind it that much. It's like a beautiful story. I don't want to give too much away in the details. It reminds me of Shannara Chronicles, but like better, because I say better and I haven't read the books. I've just seen the Shannara Chronicles, the 2 seasons they have of the show. The show is like fun, but it wasn't that great. But this book is like Shannara Chronicles, but so much better. Ben is really good at giving beautiful descriptions and at building his characters and just having this whole world in his head, and it's just I love it so much. The next book I read, I managed to read this in less than 24 hours, and this is The Crimes of Grindelwald screenplay. I read the first one really quickly too, so I was just expecting to have it done within a day. But I enjoyed this one so much better than the first screenplay. I'm not saying like in terms of the actual movie, but in terms of the screenplay, because this one was what it was supposed to be originally, like what J.K. Rowling originally had in mind. So many of the things were changed for the movie, and you can sort of see some of what like initially came out of her mind. Also, the covers for the screenplays are always the most beautiful thing ever. And then I don't know if you know this, I personally read hardback books without the cover on, which some people don't, so they don't see what's underneath the cover, but underneath the cover is the Eiffel Tower because Crimes of Grindelwald takes place a lot in Paris. Also, I don't want to talk spoilers yet, but there is like 2 parts of this book that really frustrate me because they don't make sense and don't add up, but I still give it 5 out of 5 stars, and I still think both the movie and the screenplay were amazing. And then I read Prince of Flames, which is the prequel to Cloaked in Shadow. I don't know how I got that. I don't know. I just opened my Kindle app and I was like, hey, I have that, and I haven't bought a book on Kindle for a while, so I somehow got it for free. I don't know, maybe it is free, I don't know. I've been following Ben Alderson for a while, so maybe I downloaded it free when he like posted something about it. I don't even know. But Prince of Flames, I would give 5 out of 5 stars. It was really nice. It was really nice to get a background on Fadine a little bit. I hope I'm saying her name right. I sort of forgot who Fadine was, to be honest, and then like halfway through the book I was like, I don't know who that is. So the prequel gave me like a little background on her, which was really nice. And the prequel was like short and sweet. The next book I read was My Diary, spelled like my diarrhea. I would give this a 4 out of 5 stars. I mean, it's like better than her first book, and I love Miranda Sings and I love Colleen, and her first book felt like just a jumble of random stuff thrown together, but this one felt like there was more of a story to it, and you can really see all of the hard work that Colleen and her family put behind writing it and creating the stories for these characters. The reason I give it 4 out of 5 stars is because there's just some really gross things in here. I don't want to spoil it in case you want to read it and you want to be surprised by everything, but just Miranda is known for being gross, but just some things like they go way too gross. I read this one in just a couple days, so it's pretty interesting. Is it worth $25? Probably not, but it's still pretty good, and I'd still recommend supporting Miranda / Colleen even if you aren't a huge fan of reading. The next book I read, I only read this book because I'm trying to read every single book I own, which means I have books since the 1st grade, going back like that far, that I haven't read that I got then. And I needed a filler because I ordered a book in the mail and I really wanted to read that book next, but I needed to just have a quick filler to read something, so I just picked up a short book off my shelf, and it was Sing Down the Moon by Scott O'Dell. I read a different book by Scott O'Dell that was called Island of the Blue Dolphins when I was in the 3rd grade, and it was a really interesting book and really well written, and I just really enjoyed it. And so Scott O'Dell wrote that one, and I was like, oh, it sounds good. And then reading the back, it made me think, like, I also read this book in the 3rd grade called Nyanuki, the Shoshone Girl Who Ran, and reading the back of this book I was like, it sounds like Nyanuki. But then I actually read this book and like, it's not good, not worth it. I'm not gonna spoil things, but I do have some criticism that I want to like voice why I gave it 1 out of 5 stars. So to start off with, the first like 25% of the book is about one thing, and then all of a sudden it shifts and it's about something else. So it's like there was these 2 storylines that he just combined into one book that are entirely like related to each other, and they should have each been their own book, or the first 25% should just been completely cut out of this book. There are some things in here that are historically inaccurate. I can forgive him saying Indian instead of Native American, not because that's acceptable, but because this book came out in 1970? Let me check. 1970. So I can forgive that, but there's just other things about it that are historically inaccurate, especially how she refers to people who are white. And then it's advertised as if it's a kid book, but it deals with topics that aren't okay for kids. I just don't think this is a good book at all. I like Scott O'Dell's other book, and I like historical fiction, just not this one. Also, I'm surprised it got a honor, like a Newbery honor book. I'm surprised, but you know, some people might like it. And the last book I finished reading is Wolves and Roses. It is the first book in a series. I don't remember what this series is called off the top of my head, but I think it has to do with like Magicorum or something. It's by Christina Bauer. I read it as an iBook because I got it free. Again, I'm reading like a lot of free iBooks recently, but I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. There's just so many things in it that annoyed the heck out of me. Like, it's a good, interesting idea, which is the idea that there's these different types of magic in the world. There's like witches and warlocks, and then there's shifters like werewolves, and then there's fairies, which is like interesting. And then the idea of like certain people, like certain like teenagers following this, like, I don't know, like I forget what it's called, like a storyline. So like the main character is following a Sleeping Beauty storyline, so she has like 3 aunts, which would be like the 3 fairy godmothers for Briar Rose in the fairy tale. But like, I don't know, it had such a good idea, and then I read it and it annoyed me. The major thing that annoyed me is, first of all, the villain felt very unrealistic, his like secret identity, and I just couldn't get past that. There's a character named Philpot. Like, I just can't get past the name. It's just so weird, which I get that it's supposed to be like Prince Philip, but Philpot, oh my gosh, I can't stand it. And then the inner dialogue of characters was just really annoying. So like, an example of what the inner dialogue felt like is it would describe a character saying like, that character looks scary, and then the inner dialogue of the character would be like, wow, that character looks scary. It's like, no, shucks, Sherlock, we all know that that character looks scary because it was just described like that. And a lot of times it just felt like the author wasn't giving enough credit to us as readers, and I don't know. We talked about this in my creative writing class before, which is like, you have to give your readers credit to understand what you're writing, but at the same time you don't want to have them over confused. But the author was not giving us credit for understanding what she was writing, so yeah, it like ticked me off. I get why some people might like it, it's just not for me. Maybe it's for you. It's free, so if you really want a free book, you can read it, but yeah, not that great. And that is all I read for this month, but I'm currently in the middle of reading 3 different books. Yes, I read different books at once. So I read a book on my phone, on iBook or Kindle, and then just wherever I am, like if I left the house for a little bit, I can just pull out my phone and start reading. So currently on iBooks, I'm reading Nightblade, I think it is. I got it free from Rose City Comic Con this past year. I'm not enjoying Nightblade that much, but I'm not the kind of person who gives up on a book when I'm in the middle of reading it. Like, I don't know, I like to read every single book I get, and I have a really hard time putting it down and not reading it, even if it's not enjoyable. And then on Audible, because I listen to an audiobook too, I'm listening to Into the Water by Paula Hawkins. I'm really not liking that book. I've been listening to that book since August, and it's just not enjoyable at all. All the characters are really unlikable, and I was reading reviews on Goodreads. Everybody agrees the characters are extremely, extremely unlikable. Also, I haven't read Paula Hawkins' other book, Girl in the Train, which I've heard is better, so maybe I'll try giving that one a try later, but I'm just not into the book that I'm currently reading by her. And then I'm currently in the middle of Found in Night by Ben Alderson, the sequel to Cloaked in Shadow, and I am loving Found in Night so far. It is, I don't know if the storyline, if I like it better in Found in Night or in Cloaked in Shadow, but definitely the writing has improved. There's less typos in Found in Night, and it's just amazing. I don't know why, but reading this series, I've started like sorting all of the characters in my brain, so like into Hogwarts houses, I mean, so I currently have like something on my notes on my phone for like sorting the characters. So maybe I'll make a video on sorting the characters. I don't know, I just really, really love this series, and I think everyone should read this series. That's all for today's video. If you have any thoughts on any of the books that I read, let's talk about it. Please remember to give this video a like and subscribe to me if you haven't already, and I will post all my other social media stuff down below. And I started a bookstagram recently. It's called Sugoi Reads because I'm Sugoi Sean. But yeah, I'll see you all in a future video. Bye!